Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Parent Heroes podcast. I'm your host, Zach, and on this show, we aim to bring some inspiration to parents out there raising this next generation. And boy, do I have a good one for you today. Man, Molly Tweten is not just an incredible person, but works at what I think is one of the most interesting and helpful education institutions in our country. And I got to know her through, as many of you know, my dear Kate and our college coaching business. And she knows everyone in the industry and the founder of Pacific Preparatory, which we're going to get into, as well as Tutor Core. But when we started working with them through our college coaching and recommending them to our students and meeting some of their students, I got to know Molly. She's the director of admissions over there. And wow, just such a bright, wonderful person. She's a mom. She's led an incredible life. And what she does for work, I need you to hear about this. I need you to hear about what she does. I need you to see her smiley face and hear her bright attitude. So I am so excited to welcome to the show, Molly Tweten. Molly, come on down.
Hi, Zach. Thank you so much for making time to meet with me today.
I am so glad, and to put you on the spot, this is your first official podcast, isn't it, for you?
It is, and I am very excited, and I appreciate that you have created such a fun environment, so I am at ease and I'm ready to talk.
I love it. I am so glad. We had to reschedule to do some construction last time, but I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for you to come on here. And I think before we even get into you and everything you've been through in your life and what you've got going on, we've got to talk about Pac Prep. We have
Absolutely.
got to talk about this institution. I literally got chills coming up. Without me saying too much, what's the kind of short elevator pitch of what you do? And then I want to dig in a little bit deeper.
Yes, absolutely. So Pacific Preparatory is a one-on-one customized K through 12 school. So all of our courses are one-on-one, so the teacher really gets to develop a bond and rapport with the student, and then also very customized. So really taking into account learning differences, any mental health things that they have going on, and what their goals are so that we can really customize it. We have rolling admissions, really wanting to make quick changes. So if things come up throughout their semester, we're able to adjust and pivot. So really focusing on the individual student. We have students who are with us for a single course, or we have students who are full-time with us and graduate with us.
I love it, and I want to talk about the range of students that you serve. But first, I want to talk about the teachers and the coaches and the people you bring in, because families, like, I've been in the education space a long time. I was teaching high school when I looked younger than most of my students. So I have a real appreciation for when we've worked with you all and we're designing custom work. We kind of started off in like summer programs and needing mentors for kids. Like, I'm like, I need someone in STEM that does this, this, and this. And you're like, yeah, here's someone. And then I'm like, I need a great coach for this type of person to just do executive functioning. You're like, oh yeah, we got him. I need someone in the arts or literature. And it's like, how do you all find such amazing quality people with such credentials and personalities? Like, can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So we have over 200 tutors and teachers on our roster, and that is kind of always changing. We're always looking for new people to come in and really fostering the current people that we have on our roster. We have a lot of teachers who return year after year to teach our students. So finding those, our founder, Jesse, he has an amazing network of people. So he's a big resource for us. And then also we have a fantastic hiring specialist who works with, like, goes on lots of different places, Indeed, LinkedIn, everywhere, trying to find these fantastic teachers. And then on the other piece of that, it's that initial conversation we have with the referral source, you, the family, to talk about what kind of teacher is going to be the best fit. And I think that's a really important piece. So we have all these fantastic people we're pulling from, but we also want to make sure that we have a really good understanding of the student so that we can find the right person of that pool of fantastic people to really get that great match who can really pull out the best in the student too.
I love it. It's rare that I meet a company so great that I'm like, oh, if I wasn't building something so big on my own and with Kate, I'd want to come work with y'all. And that's how it feels working with you all. So let's talk about the flip side of this, because custom one-on-one education can mean a lot of things. It can mean a single course here for two very different reasons. It can mean their whole education and they're just exposed to learning at a whole different level. So could you maybe talk about the spectrum of students you have? And for folks listening, I want you to be thinking, wow, maybe I have more options for my kids than I first thought. Maybe I could be more creative with providing for them in ways. So, and it's not just one type of student you serve, it really is this huge range. So, could you share a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, my day as the director of missions can vary so much from minute to minute. So, I may be talking to the family of a kindergartner who's needing English and math support, and they're doing homeschool, but the parent really wants to focus on those two courses. So, we can do some support there, really building customized courses for them. And they may be traveling, so pulling in where they're at location wise. So, that's part of their curriculum. But then we also work with students, so high school level students, so somebody might need credit recovery. So we can do a semester of a course to coordinate with their school of record and make sure that we're doing a customized course to help them through, figure out why they maybe weren't as successful in that first time that they took that course, make those adjustments so that they're walking away from this next course with confidence, and then also having that the content they need to be successful in the next course. And then we also work with student athletes, or we have one that's a sponsored athlete. And so he has to be going around and traveling frequently. So he has the consistency of a teaching team that he logs on and he sees that same face. They know him and he doesn't have to compromise on his big goals to for the future with his sport too.
It really is remarkable. You know, as I said, we started our partnership because one of the things we specialize in helping kids stand out from the kind of college application pool, which is how we sell it. But in my heart and how we feel is like, we want people to be amazing and live amazing lives. And like having mentors, having coaches, having these kind of unique opportunities has such an impact. So I've been so grateful. And honestly, you've been one of these people that when I met you, I was like, wow, this company is great. Like if you were the face I met in trying to provide for my kid and help, I would just feel so safe and so provided for. And, you know, we've had a lot of conversations about the level of consideration you have. It's not a one size fits all. So getting to know a family and adapting, like it doesn't always stay the same. You don't end up Pacific Prep by a straight path, and you're probably not going to keep taking one. So maybe we could back up a little bit. Like, tell me a little bit about how you ended up as director of admissions for an incredible creative education company. Could you take us through like how your path went that this is where you came to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was a student athlete in high school, and then I dove in college for all 4 years. And so, athletics has always played a big part of my life and kind of my experience in school, too. It's been very interconnected. I mean, it
Uh,
was a big motivator for me to do well in school so that I could participate in these sports. And then I had phenomenal coaches and teachers throughout that journey. And I have a high school coach that I'm still in contact with today. He's met my kiddos. I have my college coach that I'm really close with. And I think they each had different styles, but they really focused on me as a person, not just me as a diver or an athlete. And I think that's something that's really important when we're looking at that one on one education model of who's the teacher that shows that they care, who sees that student as a person and ask them about what their interests and goals are. Like maybe their goal isn't to get an A and have the best understanding of content in an algebra 1 course, but what do they need to do to get to their goal, and helping them see that so they find their own motivation, so they're not just motivated by other people's pressure. How can we get that intrinsic motivation so that that's long lasting and that they find that joy in education? And then I started off as a social worker, got a little burnt out, just high emotions. I care deeply, and I have such a hard time separating from work and my personal life. So I did need to separate from that. I have so much compassion for social workers who are in the field doing case management. And that's where I wanted to bring that social work energy and that compassion and empathy and helping kind of create a safe space for people to have all their emotions and to share really what's going on with them. But I feel like in this education space, I'm able to have a much better work-life balance of I can do that, I can be there for them, but then I can also at the end of the day be there for my own kids and
Yeah.
really have the same energy for them that I'm bringing to work.
Yeah, and you're a mom of two, right?
Yes, so I have a 1-year old and then a soon to be 4-year old.
Fun time. I mean, that could be a whole episode on its own. One of the things that I like about the show is like, we bring on some really innovative educators, but most of them are also family people and going through raising. And we're going to come back. I want to ask you about like how being in the position you are in now has kind of influenced how you're raising your kids, because I know that that's a big theme. But before we get to that question, growing up as a student athlete, and I could just tell by our interactions, like I can make some assumptions about you as a student that I assume are pretty close. Let's see how close I get. Like,
Okay.
probably had a pretty tight internal dialogue. Like, there were strong voices in your head telling you what to do. Is that accurate?
Yes, very accurate.
Okay. Talk to me about those voices, because what I want to get into are some of the motivating ethos, some of the mantras. Some of them might be positive, some of them might be negative. Maybe there's a little neurotic one back in the corner, like trying to get attention. Where did these voices and inspirations come from? Were they just internalized? Were they from family? Were they from coaches? And what was that kind of inner world like for you being a student athlete?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, my parents really instilled the value of hard work and really wanting to be a contributing positive person in my community, in my class, everything. And so I think a lot of times I felt a lot more of that pressure externally to have like to be a good student, be a perfect student, make sure that I did all that was expected of me. And so I think that it was really helpful when I had these coaches who, took the time to get to know me and really figure out, like, okay, so like, what about you in this equation? Why are you wanting to do this? Okay, like, how do we get there? And then I think I had some like self confidence things where it was really hard for me to believe in myself. And their coaches and parents and the support of other people really helped me. But then I think the biggest thing was them helping me figure out what are my goals and then accomplishing those goals helped me gain that confidence in myself as opposed to relying on other people for that confidence and for that, yes, did I do that okay? And being okay with just knowing, like, great, yeah, I accomplished that. I did that. I had these people and it was a team, but there's something super profound about setting a goal and achieving that goal and knowing all the steps you took to get there and the time it takes to get there. If you get that immediate gratification of, I wanted this, I got it, and it didn't really take much effort, I don't think it has that same effect on you long term.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this for a PSA, family, because I really want to make sure that you heard the depth of this. Like, even for someone who from the outside can accomplish great things, there is often you need someone to get up inside and not just instill values, but assess the situation and figure out how to help that person become empowered and take charge and build enough evidence. Like, I love the saying, there's nothing more convincing than a stack of evidence, right? So as we build that up, and I think we both kind of help assist roles of coaches in this, and honestly, it might be one of the flaws of the social working scene is that there's so much energy put on an emotional empath without a team of executors to build up and support that person, right? Because now we've both kind of navigated into places where like we got buddies, right? So we can not
Yes.
only just empathize and come up with a plan, but make sure that it's executed upon. So um, let's take that. How is this instilled and what you know at Pac Prep about educational opportunities into how you plan to raise your kids and how you've already started, and what kind of lessons maybe other parents can pick up from that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned from, working at Pacific Preparatory is that there isn't just one path. I think growing up in a small town in the Midwest, it was you go to the school that the one school that's an option,
Yeah.
you continue at that school until you graduate, and then you go to college right away. you apply to that, like all of the things. And it's just kind of a pretty linear, straight path.
Yeah.
And I think that, talking to families, learning from Jesse, there's a lot of different ways to go about things. And I think empowering families and students to think about what works best for them. What are their goals? Are there these other things that they want to do? Because education is kind of this growing, evolving thing. And just being in a classroom for 8 hours isn't necessarily the best way for somebody to learn. It may be the best for some people, though. But if it's not feeling right to your family, there are other options. There's other ways to go about it. And if your child is really struggling, it can feel scary as a parent to take a risk of veering off that path. But I
Yeah.
think we've seen for a lot of families that they are so grateful and thankful that they took that bit of a risk, because I think it also modeled for their kids that it's okay to try something new. And maybe it doesn't work, but you're not going to mess up your entire life by making a shift that feels good to you and trying something new.
I love that you said that about the risks and like if something isn't working, it's not working, but we sometimes stay on the same path because it's been trodden, it's been done, and that ability to take risks is so essential in living an amazing life. Um, and I think it's a good transition. Normally we have this conversation at the end of this show, just a drop at the end of like, what are the problems in the world with education? How do we solve them? But let's get into this a little bit earlier. So I think you kind of started to identify it, but from your wonderful perspective of director at admin at pacificpreparatory.com, go check it out, folks. It is Pacific Preparatory, or is it pacprep.com?
Pacific Preparatory. I
Preparatory.
slide in Pac Prep a lot just because Pacific Preparatory is kind of a mouthful at times. So a lot of times I'll just shorten to Pac Prep.
Cool. So, what would you, from your perspective, identify as some of the major problems or major problem that you see with maybe the education system, which is a small one, but also maybe education in the broader sense right now going on in the world, but really like in the country, because that's kind of where a lot of our focus is in the States here.
Yeah, I think this past spring we saw a huge increase in the number of students who are coming to us because they had to unenroll, they had to take a break from their traditional school system for their mental health because they were feeling extreme anxiety. They were having, maybe chemical dependency stuff going on, just feeling so much pressure. And I think there's pressure for the parents and for the students to like, if you don't take the right class in 7th grade, then you're not going to make it into this college. And you've now ruined your whole life. And that's a lot of pressure to put on young kiddos. And it's a lot of pressure for the parent, and kind of like we said, that feeling of risk as a parent to be like, if I do this thing or if I encourage them in this one way, how is this going to affect them in 10 years? And that's so much pressure. And
So,
I think that's one thing that we really try at Pacific Preparatory. We talk about the goals. We want to make sure that we're still able to help you on your way to your goals, because there are some very real things to consider when you're making big decisions. But I also want to make sure that we're helping instill a growth mindset in our students, that we want them to feel safe in a classroom, to bring up a new idea, ask the question, and say, I was thinking about this. What about this? Can I lean into this interest? Can we pull that into this? And know that it's okay to make mistakes, because we're all going to make mistakes. And I think that's something that we want to model for our students, that, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to flub up lines. I'm going to mess things up, and it's okay. And I'm still fantastic at what I do. I'm still a valuable, worthwhile human being. And we want our students to leave their classes with the content knowledge, with a great grade. We want them to have all those things. But the most important thing at the end of the day is that they feel confident in themselves, that they have that love of learning, that they know it's okay to be themselves and to make mistakes, and that that's going to happen in their path too.
oh, let's just give that a moment to sink in. This is like the part of the show, folks, where you rewind it and you re-listen to everything she just said, because there were so many deep aspects to that. One of them, though, that stood out to me is like we put a lot of emphasis on the kids, helping the kids, reinforcing, helping with their anxiety. But what I often find myself saying in our kind of college prep and college admissions business is like, our business is just as much for the parents.
Mhm.
And, kind of the Caesar Milan style, you have a problem with the dog. It's a problem with you. It's a problem with you. So I think probably parents are thinking when they come to pay you for a service, like maybe it's a lot of money to them, maybe it's no problem, but the focus is on the kid. How much do you think what you're doing is helping the parent, and what role does the parent's confidence and sense of feeling like they have a direction and they've got partners to work with? Maybe you could talk a little bit about the parent side of the education thing and that.
Yeah, I think that that's a big piece of my role is interacting with the parents. So I work with families as they're coming through and figure out if we're a right fit for them, help through the enrollment process. But also, once families are enrolled with us, I'm also still there. I'm still somebody they can come to. And I think that's comforting as well, because sometimes it's hard if you're like, great, so this person's promising me all these things, and then I never hear from them again. Then it's hard because there's not that accountability. And so I think if they talk to me about a program and they're figuring it out, then if they enroll and they're kind of going, I'm not so sure, I don't know how this is going. I've heard this feedback or he said this, then I can be a thought partner and go, great, what I'm hearing from the teacher is this, and we can kind of come together on that. We have a lot more data because we're working together. And then also for the parents too, we have an outreach manager who has contacts in with psychologists, ed consultants, everything. And so I think that's the other piece of, if we're noticing something, we're the school and we want to do a great job at being that student school. We also want to make sure that we're staying in our lane of like, great, we're not specialists in mental health or certain other things. So we want to make sure to make those referrals out too, because we're working with people. The parents have their own lives, they have lots going on, and so I can be a thought partner for the education. And if it's something outside of that and we're noticing that there's some struggles there, then we want to get them connected to other resources too.
It really takes a village, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that that's a big part of what we've loved about partnering with you. Because in case it wasn't clear, like when we work with a family and we see an opportunity for some customized learning or even executive functioning training, all of these things like Pac Prep, Tutor Core, these are the ones we come to help with the implementation because we're a small in-house team and it doesn't make sense for us to try to hire 200 tutors when our implementation is here. But I love that this let's get everybody. And I think that part of what, from my perspective, solving the education problem is like the stuff not taught in school, right? Obviously, there's a lot that could be improved of what the formal schools are teaching. But I think that now we're at the point, like you said, like there is mental health specialists, there's customized curriculum, there's parents feeling like they have advocates and all of this. And I think that this is really that kind of community education, and rising it up through all that. So this is really cool. How can a family who maybe doesn't work with you and is just listening to this, like, how can your role and what you've done maybe shift their perspective? And I'd love if you have some examples of like, are there parents that come to mind that you've just really appreciated, like their willingness of what they're willing to do for their kid, or maybe their strength in thinking out of the box, or maybe even a journey where you've seen a parent's perspective shift over time? Could you maybe talk to us about some other parent heroes maybe you see without giving away too much information, but maybe some inspiration for families and maybe even some of the like, it's not always easy and pretty part of it?
Yeah, I think that there's so many great examples. We have some amazing families that we've worked with or are currently working with. I think that some of the ones that have been most emotional and have really stuck with me are the parents who have had to fight really hard for students who have learning differences and have not thrived in a traditional school model. And so a lot of times by the time they've gotten to us, and one family in particular, the mom, called and was feeling a bit defensive in our first conversation when I'd ask questions. It was, well, he's really smart. He's very smart. There's all these things. And I'm like, okay, let's, and I was like, yeah, I want to hear all of the wonderful things. Let's talk about that. And I was like, I also want to ask about what diagnoses does he have. And it's not, if you share that we're not going to admit him to our school, it's truly trying to find the best matches for him for teachers so that they're coming with an understanding for him and that they're going to understand where he's coming from. And once she saw that our team was truly looking out for her son's best interest, then she was like, okay. And she tried it. And so they did a full-time semester with us for one semester. And then her son really wanted to go back in person. So I said, okay, great. Let's do that. But let's try it with hybrid. So then they went for a couple classes in person to their school. So they got that peer interaction. And then they had 2 classes with us with 2 of the teachers that they really connected with and bonded with. And so it was a nice way to honor his request, but also have a little bit of a safety net and have some of that comfort for him too. And then, the in-person piece didn't work out so great. And it was a struggle after a couple weeks. And then he was able to transition back to us. We have rolling admissions. So we then just gave him partial credit for what he had completed at that other school, and then finish out his programming with us. And to be honest, the remainder of his 11th and 12th grade years were kind of that. It was kind of piecemealing things together, doing some outside courses, getting creative, really pulling on some of his interests to help him be engaged and be motivated in this one-on-one environment. And then he graduated with us, and his graduation ceremony was just so powerful because time and time there was multiple family members there that came and were emotional, saying we weren't sure if this was going to happen. And they gave a lot of credit to us as the school for being flexible and being willing to work with them on how this was going to be for him. And then also one of the coolest moments was his dad calling him out and saying, you did this. You advocated for yourself. You made this happen. You worked really hard to get here. And I think that is so cool that at the end of the day, it was seen as this strength that he created his high school experience.
Wow.
And I think that is, and the mom ended up crying because she's like, I don't think we would have gotten to a high school diploma without Pac Prep.
Wow.
And I think that high school diploma, as much as we want to do non-traditional paths, everything, there are certain things that are barriers to employment and to admissions to other places. So if he has goals to go on to do these other things, I think being creative and making sure that we're following what we need to for accreditation and everything, but not singling out students and not allowing them to graduate just because they are having a hard time with the traditional path, feels really punitive. And we want to make sure that we create a safe environment for them to meet those goals and help them be successful long term.
God, I could only imagine what that family went through. And I love what you said, that some people are like, we didn't even know if this is going to work, right? Like sometimes you don't find out until the end, and you do have to kind of keep pushing through what doesn't work. And I think there's probably a good amount of parents out there that can relate. We are in a point in culture and society and evolution where like students have in part been pummeled, I think, with COVID and with other things and sensitivities, to the point where like some of their executive functioning, some of the intelligence, some of the hard skills we've seen at several grade levels diminished. But at the same time, their understanding of like what matters in life and what's important has also like opened up and evolved. And we have this interesting situation where like 2 extremes exist at once. Like, you need some skills, son. You probably need to graduate high school. College isn't for everyone, but yeah, if you go through it, it is going to open some doors. And if you're not doing college, you should do something equally challenging and beneficial to your future that is helping you. And I love the way you describe kind of this family's journey through it. And I really feel for them through that. And hopefully there's other parents who are hearing this and going, okay, let's just keep it moving, keep the momentum of all of that.
When I think one of the coolest pieces of that too was at his graduation ceremony, teachers who previously worked with him, who were no longer even working with our company, wanted to come to his ceremony, and he invited them. He had made such a lasting impact on his teachers too, which was just so cool. And I think that also goes to show that he has great things ahead for him. And just because somebody doesn't fit into a traditional model doesn't mean that they don't have a ton to offer the world and our school and the teachers. And so I think that's another piece too, is just making sure that, everyone has a spot and everyone has a place to be. If we're not that place for them, then we're probably going to tap our network to find, okay, well, who do we know that maybe can direct you in the right place? Because I do think that it's pretty daunting when you're looking for resources and services and you've been, through IEPs or had to fight really hard for your student. It can feel overwhelming if somebody sends you a list of 12 things or you're trying to Google and you're just cold calling places. So I think having a knowledge of, great, maybe this might be a good fit for you and here's a person to talk to, as opposed to just calling and leaving a message somewhere, can just take away some of that burden off of the family too.
Well, I love that you said that, because that's really part of our goal and our work, in our business. Kate is often the one, she's the face of it. She's the head of it. She's been doing this forever. And so as I kind of came in her coattails and I'm building up this massive company and ability to have impact on more and more families, I was kind of wondering, because I've been a content creator my whole career, like, where do I fit in? I don't want to create college coaching material. I don't want to create the video on how do you stand out to colleges, although I know that's part of our wheelhouse. So being able to take our network of people and bring that out so that you could hear, whoa, there's this fascinating person, there's this fascinating person. We actually already recorded the episode of Jenny, who you recommended that we talk to. So if you've heard this, the next one you're going to hear is from another one who's actually on the more mental health side of things and helping with that support, but doing it in a way that is educational as well. So there's such a network of support. And I do think that that's kind of what is going to be the education of the future. So maybe we end on this question. If you were to zoom out 10, 15, 100 years, and some of the best parts of what are being done in the educational space evolve and mesh and interlap, could you maybe paint for us a little bit of a ideal, maybe we even get a little utopian for a second, of what does ideal education look like? Because you said it doesn't just mean we chuck out the traditional and rely completely on this. Maybe it's a hybrid. Paint a picture for us.
You're probably going to hate this answer, but I think it depends on the individual student, because I think that there is no one size fits all model. There's not one path that's going to work. So I think the ideal education model, the ideal future for that is, I think for me, that a student who's come in and they've had a non-traditional path, or I guess maybe in the future, there is no traditional, non-traditional path. Each person just has their path. And then everyone's kind of looked at as the individual, what got them there, what strengths are they bringing, and it's more focused on that as opposed to just looking at a credential, looking at certain things that way. So long story short, I think just more acceptance of different ways of getting to end goals, I think, is something that I would love to see in the future.
So simple. Well, Molly, I gotta say, I don't want to stop talking. I love our conversations and they cover so much. And I love when we get to talk about kids and how to help them. So families, if any of this interests you or might be a solution for someone or for your own family, I highly recommend you reach out to Pacific Prep. Now that you've met Molly once and you meet her in her capacity, I could really speak to her level of caring, of knowledge, and your company has been around a while, so you've done this, so it's not just guesswork. And so of course I wanted to bring you on and have everyone meet you as one of these smiling faces over there. And I really encourage folks to reach out to Molly, either for yourself or for a family that this might be helpful for. So Molly, thank you so much for doing this. I think you did great. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a round of applause, shall we, for her podcast episode. I thank you for being a guest here, and just really grateful for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Zach. This was wonderful. It was very enjoyable. I want to do another one now.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think you're going to do great with it, and maybe we can help you find some people to go on the shows with. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like this, please do me a favor. like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, share it with a friend, go back and re-listen it yourself. Again, our goal here is just to provide some inspiration, some reminders, because I'm of the mindset that if you haven't done it 100 times or practiced it over and over again, like, there's no way to be successful with it. So hopefully this is one or two or more of those reminders that just help you being strong, innovative. And if you know any other amazing parents or inspiring educators out there, please connect them with us so that we can share them with the world. Folks, have a wonderful day. Go out there and be fantastic.